Welcome, I'm Robert Fitzgerald. I'm the newly minted Age Discrimination Commissioner, taking over from the great work done by Kay Patterson. And today it's a great pleasure to launch a new series of interviews with prominent Australians, thought leaders of our nation in relation to ageing. And the series is called Let's Talk Ageing. We hope that by having these discussions with prominent individuals, sharing ideas and thoughts, we might be able to create a better environment for those of us that are ageing, a positive environment, and also to deal with some of the big issues confronting older Australians. Today it's a great joy to be able to interview, as our very first interview, Emeritus Professor Rosalind Croucher, the current President of the Australian Human Rights Commission, almost about to finish her term. And Rosalind was also acting Age Discrimination Commissioner shortly before my appointment. So welcome, Ros. Ros, it's really wonderful to have you as our first interviewee. You've just recently come back from the United Nations in Geneva. I was just wondering what sort of reflections you've had on that visit, given it's your last as President of the Australian Human Rights Commission.
Thank you, Robert. The visit was in the context of the annual meeting of the Global Alliance of National Human Rights Institutions. There are 120 worldwide, and it's a very big group. We have business that we have to get through, but we also have an opportunity to focus on key thematic issues that concern us regionally and internationally. And one of those that came from our own region was the importance of a convention recognising specifically the position of older people. So that was one of the themes. And to see it have prominence in that context indicates that it really is one of the issues of the moment.
And as you and I are both at that age where we get to be called seniors, and for some of us we're going to become grumpy old men and women in our old age. But I'm
Speak
sure
for
you're
yourself.
not going to be, with your extraordinary background. But how do you see yourself approaching old age or ageing?
We age from the day we're born. So ageing is not confined to a certain numerical age, although certain physical issues are associated with a numerical age. I see that with each year you get wiser, and I appreciate the physical things that happen as one gets older, but age and maturity give you an enormous amount of wisdom. And I think one of the challenges is getting that alignment of what people see from the outside, to see the wisdom and not be distracted by physical aging, but rather see the strength of years accumulated as wisdom accumulated.
So what do you think are some of the great challenges for older Australians?
Hanging on to their autonomy and agency. And one of the difficulties happens with what people see from the outside and the assumptions that are made, and this sense of sometimes coming from a space of benevolence, wanting to help, but the wanting to help can also be a denial of what do you want? Can I help you? Rather than framing it as what I can do for you because you need help, framing it rather as you are so wise, can I help you in any way? Or what do you want? So it's that sense of agency and autonomy as you age that can easily slide into this benevolence that can overtake and deny you agency and autonomy. I think that's the thing that I saw the most. And for the most part it wasn't evil, but that excessive paternalistic or benevolent approach can actually deny you the space for decision making, good and bad.
Yeah, one of the things that I've often said is that as we age we become invisible or less visible and worse, voiceless. And in many senses the thing that underpins both elder abuse and the abuse by others in our community is of course that loss of agency, as you said, that voice not being heard. But do you think there are some practical measures Australia needs to do at a policy level and at a practice level to sort of moderate the risks that we see in elder abuse and in fact that diminishment of agencies we've been talking about?
There are so many things. I could see the lists going through my mind as you asked the question. I think that the starting point is always to assume agency and not to start from an assumption of, well, we need to make sure someone is there to be your backstop or whatever. So in the aged care context, for example, if people are going into the appointment of an attorney under a power of attorney document, and then assumptions that went with that they were the decision makers, not that they were your default in the event that you needed that support, but rather they became the decision maker, which immediately assumes that lack of agency and autonomy. So it was a flashpoint for those kinds of things. So all kinds of decision making, whether it's decisions about care, whether it's decisions about food, where you live, what you want to do, that you retain the primary agency, and any policy or practice or process that detracts from that fundamental proposition needs to be looked at closely.
You've got a conference coming up for Free of Equal, or pushing the particular agenda. Some people would say, Australian older people have it pretty good. Now we know some don't. But the big question is, why do rights actually matter? And I suppose underpinning the work of the Commission and the push towards a United Nations Convention on the Rights of Older People, what is it that you think is missing in our current system that would be rectified or strengthened by having a stronger rights-based framework?
A stronger rights framework, and particularly anchored in domestic legislation that aligns more directly with the promises our governments make to the world by signing up to international treaties, that stronger anchoring in law would provide what I see as a much higher responsibility in making decisions and designing policy, but also in accountability, so that decision makers can be held to account. There are remedial pathways that potentially actually lead to a remedy and not just some piece of paper that doesn't go anywhere. But that responsibility and accountability would be anchored properly in laws of our own. And for older people, one of the problems is the invisibility. And while one can assume, well, the position of older people is, in rights terms, is no different from any other rights context, the problem with that is that there is that danger of invisibility and disappearance unless the position of an older person is recognised in the way that we recognise people with disability, the issues in relation to race, gender. If age is not singled out for its own particular recognition, there is the danger of invisibility of a cohort, an increasing cohort, with increasing vulnerabilities that go with the physical consequences of ageing, sadly, that the dangers of invisibility can be compounded by an assumption that we don't need specific protection for older people.
So over the last couple of decades, as there's been work done on that potential for a convention, many governments, including the Australian governments, have either sat on the fence or have been completely indifferent to it. Why do you think that's been the case, not only for Australia, but generally?
I think the answer is found in the very broad commitments that are already contained in the range of international conventions, certainly that Australia has signed and ratified, 7 in fact. And the commitments in those general conventions apply to older people as well. So people might argue, and argue well, the coverage in rights protections at the level of international treaties is very wide. But the problem, as we've been discussing, is the danger of disappearance, the danger of invisibility in the context of a population where we are an ageing population. And that's not going to get less, it's going to get more. And with that, if we assume that all's well and dandy because of the coverage of others. There is the problem of lack of visibility of the specific rights issues that apply to older people.
So if people want to become involved in this issue or become more knowledgeable about the issues that you've been raising, Ros, what do you think they should do or what's available for them?
Well, the Human Rights Commission itself is a wonderful resource of material through submissions that we make on a whole range of issues, the various inquiry reports and so on. In relation to rights at the moment and the tipping point that we have in terms of embracing a revitalised human rights framework in Australia, which is the central point of our free and equal report and inquiry advocacy, is to see the work that we're doing, read the material we've produced, join us at the conference, the Free and Equal Conference in the first week of June, which will be fantastic, and really get interested and engaged in what these issues mean for you. Because everyone is ageing. It is not something that is out there in the future, a long way away. Ageing starts from the day we are born. We have people in our lives that are wonderful older people. You will be that person sooner than you realise. So these are issues that are relevant and important to you now and in the future, and for our country to make it a much stronger place of rights protection for older people, but all our people.
Well, that's terrific. Terrific way to end. And hopefully you and I and everyone else can enter ageing in a positive way and our experience be as positive as possible. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert.
These series of talks and interviews will come out on a regular basis by the Commission, and we're very hopeful that you can engage in this process as well. If you'd like to find out more about this particular Let's Talk Ageing series, or any of the work of the Human Rights Commission, or especially the Age Discrimination Commissioner, just go to our website and hopefully we can join you in the future. Take care.